Jaylen McCollough indicted on aggravated assault charge. What does this mean for Jaylen and the Vols, do you think, Caleb Calhoun?
It's not good. This is based on the incident, for those who don't know, that happened 8 months ago where both parties, by the way, acknowledge a drunk guy walked into Jaylen McCollough's dorm room. And we don't know what happened after that. We just know that there was a punch or some sort of physical altercation in which the person got hurt. Now, as far as we were aware, the person was claiming he drunkenly walked in, but then he left and that McCollough followed him out and punched him in the stairs. McCollough and his team and his roommate, Warren Burrell, were both claiming, no, after they told him he went to the wrong apartment, he got visibly aggressive and pushed back, and then that's when they fought him. So it's kind of a he said, she said. We didn't sit on this grand jury, so we don't have all the facts. We don't have the facts they have. The bar for an indictment is obviously a lot lower than the bar for a conviction. But they did vote to indict him based on the details of the case, which would suggest, I don't know if you keep him suspended until this clears itself. Cases can take a long time. But yes, it's not a great situation for Tennessee when McCollough is their most experienced safety.
Well, it's one of those situations, and I hate drawing parallels in legal cases because everything's different. And this is way different. But it's one of those situations that I wonder if it could sideline him. You know, we saw A.J. Johnson get sidelined for
4 years.
Yeah, what apparently has been a completely baseless charge. But with Jaylen McCollough, I'm not saying 4 years at all, but you do wonder if this drags on into the fall. We all know that the legal system moves incredibly slow. Is he having hearings and those sorts of things into the fall? That can't be a good thing for anybody. I don't care if he's 100% innocent right now. This just taking the next step is a significant piece of news as it pertains to Jaylen McCollough and his ability to perform at his utmost for the Vols.
Yeah, this is a big deal. And then there comes a philosophical question, because constitutionally, the accused has a right to a speedy trial. But as we know, our state governments across the country skirt that one Bill of Rights a lot. Okay, again, A.J. Johnson did not get the right to a speedy trial. He had to wait 4 years and put his whole career on hold, only to be found innocent within like 30 minutes of the case concluding very quickly. So, Dave, what do you think philosophically? If you're Josh Heupel, do you say, I'm playing the guy? It's on y'all to build the case. If you think he's guilty, convict him. But until you convict him, I'm not going to put his career on hold just because you guys don't give him the trial in time that he needs.
Well, how many games did he miss last year? Do you remember? Because
it was like 2 weeks. He missed the Alabama game.
Yeah, he missed the Alabama game. So I would say this. I would go ahead and play him. That wouldn't stop me. I mean, at the end of the day, this is punching a guy. And yeah, I would be lying to you if I sat here and said that I didn't punch a guy in college on more than one occasion. So I'm not going to come down holier than thou. And I definitely would have punched a guy if he'd have walked into my girlfriend's room. Now, the gray area is, Caleb, how far did he follow him out? How drunk was the guy? Did he say, hey, man, you're in the wrong room, and the guy immediately left? Or did he hang around and say, hi, your girlfriend's hot, or something like that? I mean, the amount of gray area could fill Albert Einstein's head. So, I mean, I don't know how this shakes out. I would think that wouldn't there be some sort of resolution before it actually goes to jury trial? Wouldn't you think?
You would have thought, but maybe, again, maybe this is a McCollough situation where he doesn't want to settle because he feels that he did nothing wrong, and he wants to make the point that he did nothing wrong. And so, I mean, I can't fault that. I can't blame him for that.
Now, on the message board, Rocky Top Tom says, there is no philosophically. If I'm coach, I don't want this mess anywhere near the program at all. Don't care about fault. Don't care about context. If I'm coach, I care about the program. I respect your opinion here, Tom. I do. but I don't think it's right to sideline a guy's career for something that could be very, very defensible. I don't know how defensible it is, and evidently there's enough gray area where they're going to pursue the charges. But Caleb, I mean, this could turn into a lot of different things, and I do think it's important to point out what are they supposed to say, but McCullough's defense has said absolutely innocent. Those are the words they used. So they are digging their heels in the sand. You typically wouldn't do that unless you felt really good about your case. It could be posturing, but typically when I've seen lawyers use those type of terms, they feel really, really, really good about their case.
Yeah, and DAs are different across the country. I don't know if Knoxville has the same DA that was there in 2014, but for people that question
You're
whether or
referring
not
to the AJ Johnson case?
yes.
Well, I would hope not.
That DA had not look, we don't know what happened with AJ Johnson, Mike Evans. I think it was Mike Evans. Maybe not Mike. There was another player. We don't know what happened with AJ Johnson, the other player and that girl. Nobody does. Only they know. What we do know is there wasn't a shred of evidence, and there was going to be an easy acquittal, and the DA still brought the case and spent 4 years on the case that was an obvious case that they were going to lose. They were obviously going to lose that case, and they still spent 4 years on it. So just because the DA brings the case to trial doesn't always mean that they have the evidence. I think sometimes there is a little bit of an ambition for a lot of DAs of I'm going to take on the football team. And
okay, that is true. There is also oftentimes ambition for civilians to try to continue to further charges against athletes in hopes that they have money. That's something that we haven't talked about with NIL. Going after a kid who didn't just had a scholarship, nothing else 10 years ago was not the same as potentially going after him now. Now, I am the type of guy that I'm going to side like Tom. I'm going to side on the side of the legal system and the police 9 times out of 10. But this is the 1 time out of 10 where I'm just going to tell you I'm not sure. And I hope that's not a cop-out. But I don't know, and I don't think anybody knows except for about 4 people, Burrell, McCullough, girlfriend, punched guy, what really happened that night. So I hope they find a resolution without it going to trial. Let's talk about this strictly from a football standpoint. You could argue Jaylen McCollough is Tennessee's best defensive back.
He's definitely the most important. I mean, we talked to Fred earlier about the knowledge, how experience is crucial when you're playing the safety spot. He's the only experienced safety on that team, and experience at safety covers a lot of times for deficiencies in the rest of the secondary, i.e. Trey Flowers last year. And Tennessee might have needed that from Jaylen McCollough this year. So this is a huge loss for Tennessee. I mean, you couldn't
if he doesn't play. If
he doesn't play. If he doesn't play, this is a huge loss. I mean, this guy covers. Tennessee is going to have issues at cornerback again, and Jaylen McCollough is the type of guy that you're going to need to cover for some of those deficiencies. I mean, you can't understate how big of a loss this would be, or overstate how big of a loss this would be for Tennessee.
To answer your earlier question, I had a second to think about it. I'd just play him. I really would. I think he sat 2 games. If worst case scenario, he got in a fight on the strip and punched somebody, that sounds like a 2-game suspension to me.
Yeah. I mean, my thing on this is
as long as the person isn't seriously physically injured. I think it was it Tony Franklin, the defensive tackle, and
Tony McDaniel.
Tony McDaniel, excuse me. And I combine him and Abreu Franklin, I think. But Tony McDaniel punched a guy, and the guy's jaw was broken. And I thought Tennessee was too soft on him. It is the punch, it is the action, but also what happens from the action is a factor. How injured are you? And by all accounts, the guy got hit in the head, but he
also
was severely injured.
It's a different situation. Tony McDaniel, that was an intramural basketball game. It's where you do the punch matters. If McCullough punched a drunk guy who came into his apartment versus you punching somebody in an intramural game, I mean,
totally agree. But you would agree too that the broken jaw is worse than a bloody lip, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, broken jaw, you're eating through a straw for the next 6 weeks. Travis says if I'm Heupel and I sincerely believe his innocence, he's going to play, do what's right. I agree with that. If I'm Heupel and I believe his innocence, and I've said this before, you can lie to the police, not that you should. You can lie to your lawyer. You can lie to everybody. But if you lie to your head coach, you've just really messed up your career. So there is always the understood rule that you don't lie to the coach. You tell him what happened. As long as he's done that, yes, I have no problem playing him whatsoever. So if I believe he's innocent, he's going to play. But if I believe that he's only partly guilty, like he maybe walked him down 3 or 4 steps and punched him, I'm going to play him too. Does that make me a bad person?
No.
Because the guy could have turned around and said, listen, jackwagon, I'm not, it was an accident. You're an idiot. Why don't you go bleepity bleep, bleep, bleep? And then, you know, at that point, you're pretty mad about not only him walking in your girlfriend's apartment, but also him cursing you. Again, this is all hypothetical and speculative. But if that happens, in my younger days, I would be apt to punch somebody.
And let's break this down too. Like, okay, let's just think about this for a minute. What's more likely to be true here? A drunk guy. Look, I've been obnoxiously drunk. We all have. But a guy who we know he was drunk. He admitted himself he was drunk and walked into McCollough's apartment. So what's more likely? A drunk guy escalating tensions because he's drunk and feels like he can, or a football player who stands to lose everything, chasing a guy out of his apartment down a flight of steps. Like, which one is more likely to be true?
I'm with you. Usually when I have a problem with a drunk guy and he walks away, that's the end of it. I'm like, good, he got away from me. I don't go re-engage with him. Tom and I didn't completely agree throughout the show, but there's his latest post. We definitely agree on that. Don't lie to coach or grandma. Them's the rules. That's absolutely right. Thank you, Tom. Even though we didn't agree, great give and take there.